Your mics are live.
Good to see everyone. We'll go ahead and call to order our workshop meeting. And if the city clerk could call the roll, please.
Mayor Black,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodard,
Here.
Commissioner Church,
Here.
Commissioner Cosentino,
Here.
Commissioner Shy.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, all members are seated and present.
Okay, thank you. Our sole item of business on tonight's agenda, this is something we've been discussing for a while, is a discussion regarding our city manager. And wanted to thank everyone on for completing the evaluations, and wanted to thank our city clerk for tabulating, making this available to each one of us. See, we have an average, as this is averaged out, of 3.3 out of 5. In terms of some general discussion, in terms of both with the evaluations as presented and comments that were made, we need to go through and just talk about what our concerns are and what our expectations are, even setting some priorities for the future. And so I'd kind of like for us to go that direction this evening. Has everyone had it? I think we just got this tonight. As you review it, so I guess what we could do is, let's start with, as we go through this, we do have an average of 3.3 out of 5. But I know that we have had some concerns addressed, and so let's, Ms. Porter, as you went through, were you able to review these with each of the
I did, yes.
commissioners? Okay.
Yes.
And any takeaway that you had from it, or?
Yeah, I had the final conversation this afternoon with you, Mayor, and I reflected afterwards, looked at the reviews, and it seemed to me the takeaways for me focus on 3 areas of an emphasis for improvement and ways that I can do better. I think the first one was the emphasis on developing a work environment that recruits, retains, and supports quality staff. That would include notes on like accountability, improving morale, and working on employee retention.
Public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak at this time? And who is this? Welcome, Commissioner Bennett. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
As most of you know, I was a commissioner for 27 years and 2 months. And we always worked together. Of course, we had differences. Mrs. Porter needs a chance to meet the goals you all set for her. And you need to err on the side of caution. Mrs. Porter deserves the opportunity to meet the goals you all set forth during that workshop. I have worked with many city managers during my years as a city commissioner. The city manager position is a tough one, a tough position. And you never know who you're going to get next. You are in the middle of many projects, and your first priority should be filling the critical vacant positions. Public Works Director, the Utility Director, HR Director, the Community Development Director, all these. And we should love instead of hate. A true saying is, what goes around comes around. And that is a true saying. So please proceed with caution. Thank you.
I do.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Wood.
I have, so two things. I know at the last commission, we didn't solidify together, as a group to address our city manager. And I will, now that we have Mr. Brackett here to, give some guidance on the actual addressing and being able to have the item as an agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Your code has sort of it tends a lot of different codes, but also not in some. You have an express prohibition from taking any action, voting, not consensus, but voting on any item, unless it's expressly on your agenda. And so, to the extent you all want to discuss the benchmarks or having any action taken with respect to the city manager, the first thing you need to do is to have it placed on an agenda. And you can do that by consensus. The way you do it is simply, it doesn't have to be specific, you don't have to tailor what the action is, but you can just simply say, there's the will of the body, that the city managers be placed on the agenda for a meeting in the future. And if you're gonna do that, I do have an ask for you with regard to that. For me, I take direction from you all, I take direction from the city manager. In order for me to engage in a discussion with her about a path forward for our city, I need that consensus to engage in that conversation. So two things, if you want it placed on the agenda so you have the opportunity to take action, however you wish to proceed, you need to have consensus to put it on the agenda. And my other ask is you allow me to have conversations with her. And if it's on an agenda, if there's something to report back or bring back for you, we'll do that at that time.
And I would like to comment that I was very clear. There was no misunderstanding of where I stood. I have spent the last 4 years of documenting performance. This is nothing personal. This is not a personal vendetta. I don't hate nobody. And I also know I'm not gonna please everybody. But I have to be able to put my head on my pillow at night knowing that the people who voted for me, who put their confidence in me, that I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna make some of the tough calls. I'm gonna have to make some of the tough decisions. 4 years of my documentation, just 4 years of my documentation. I said it in the workshop and I'll say it again today, is a substandard performance of my documentation. I don't do evaluations and take them lightly. I don't just score somebody just because the score is there. I am fair and I am just across the board because this is a job and it's a well-paid job. There are not too many jobs here in the city of Dade City that people make as much as our city manager makes. And with that cost comes a level of responsibility. Are we in a tough situation? Absolutely. Are we in a state where we need to go into some type of negotiation through our city attorney? Absolutely. Are we saying just chop Leslie off and send her off today? No, that's not what I'm saying. We do need a plan. But what we also need to do is correct the wrong that has been done. She has been allowed to have substandard performance for years. And it's time for someone to stand up and call it like it is. And if that someone is me, I'll do it today, I'll do it in another workshop, and I'll do it in another workshop. That's all I have to say.
And so, but what we're having a request tonight, I hear two different things. The attorney to come back to us by consensus with a checklist of all of the things that we're expecting of the city manager, what the time frame would be, and a some type of a reporting on that so that we can gauge the progress. The other would be to begin conversations, the city attorney would be beginning the conversations with Ms. Porter in terms of, state that again, Patrick, how you said it.
Just a path forward ideas. I need to take the deadlines and the notes and the things that you all took from that meeting and just begin a discussion with her about path forward for the city and proposals to bring back to you.
Okay. So on July 9th, you could come back and report. Or on July 9th, we could also have it on the agenda where we could make a decision.
July 9th, I can come back and report. You're not making it, you can't make a decision. It's not on the agenda, but I can, during the attorney report, I can make a report to you where we are in our discussions and seek further guidance, further consensus. That's fine too.
And then at that point, it could be put on the calendar.
It's up to you. You can put it on the agenda now, you can decide to put it on an agenda following the night.
So here's the decision we have to make. On July 9th, are we gonna have a report, or are we gonna have this on the agenda where action could be taken? Anything else from the commission before we open this to the public? At this time, we'll open the meeting to the public. If there's anyone in the public who would like to come forward and speak, we do provide 3 minutes each, up to 3 minutes each, and we just ask that you state your name and your address for the record, please. Welcome.
Hi. Question or more like clarification on Mr. Bracken's, what discussions are you wanting to have on proceeding forward?
Mr. Brackens, are you able to answer that?
Sure. This, take your direction to answer it if you'd like. This is for public comments for items not already discussed. But to answer your question, I'm not going to. I'm going to discuss a variety of options with the city manager. I'll bring them back and report them to my client. I'm not going to discuss them with the public.
Okay, so then I'm just going to wonder, and the rest of the public is going to wonder, what are those negotiations, or is it negotiations on how she can get out of her contract, on how to protect her? You know, those are questions that we're not understanding. Why are you going to be talking to her about your guys' decisions?
I'm going to be talking to her because the city commission directed me to.
Okay.
My duty of loyalty is to the city as an entity, not to any one person, not to any one of these members. Honestly, not to the commission as a body, it's the city as an entity. So I don't represent Ms. Porter.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. And I'm just going to repeat again things that I've already said. This tough decision that you guys talked about with Leslie, I'm sorry, it is self-inflicted. It is self-inflicted on Leslie. You guys are talking about needing to hire all the department heads. You guys have to understand, I know you guys understand, maybe we need to admit here that all the department heads and the lack of staff that is not here anymore is because of her not hiring properly. And so they weren't qualified, they weren't doing the right job, they were terrible to their employees, and so I understand that we need to hire department heads, for sure. She has proven that she can't do that part of the job, amongst other things. You have had 5 years, you guys are talking about giving her opportunities and, you know, meeting these expectations. It is 5 years, as Mayor Pro Tem Marmita has discussed. At what point, after 4 years, are you guys going to keep on giving her opportunity after opportunity when that has not been given to the staff that have been fired? These employees that have been fired have had a lot of them have not had any disciplinary history at all. They were not given any opportunities to correct anything. They were not given any kind of self-improvement programs. They weren't given that.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Would anyone else like to speak at this time? Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Ms. Parrish, yes.
I'll be quick. My name is Carolyn Parrish. I live
say is that I think that we are forgetting how Ms. Porter left the city in the lurch. I don't know for fact, but it seems weird to me that when Decker was still here, she kind of had this diluted FMLA, and it wasn't until people started calling and writing and having fights and things like that about her accountability and the absence from the office. And then all of a sudden, when Decker was gone, it's kind of like all of a sudden then the FML paperwork was done, you know, kind of masked under this intermittent situation. And then I know for a fact that after 30 days, you guys have the right to demand recertification, which in essence asks the doctor, you know, is this family member's presence needed to be away from work? And then all of a sudden, miraculously, you know, now she's back. I think that's kind of a little bit too coincidental. But I also want to say, you know, with all due respect to Commissioner Scheid, that you always are selling yourself. Oh, I've been around a lot of years, I've been around a lot of years. But let's not forget, a few meetings ago, that catastrophic disclosure of how you'd sign that contract for that cross-wire or whatever that, you know, 2,500 home community is. That contract was signed putting, you know, Mr. Bracken said, you know, he lectured us how what a scary situation, and it could turn into a $100 million lawsuit. So I don't know that based on that, you know, kind of puffed up and you were like, oh, I want an explanation, but it's like, look in the mirror, because you're the one who, well, I'm not supposed to address you, but, you know, the person who signs it should be the one who should not act all upset and say, oh, I demand an explanation. You signed, your name was on that contract. It was your responsibility to have known the contents of that. And as far as Ms. Porter, I think that we all forget, what about forged water sampling, absentee water sampling, hire somebody in public works who does not possess a college degree, which is what the job description is. And since the meeting of the workshop that we all sat at and patiently listened about goals and all this kind of superfluous talk, you know, Pro Tem Mayor, you know, Woodard is totally right on, because it's like, at what point are you gonna stop the bleeding and realize that you have somebody who's willing to take money from people's salaries to pay the law firm that she is unreasonably dependent on? And I think that's dysfunctional to allow them to have a meeting, because I think Jenny's right. We don't know what is gonna go on. What kind, you know, and I'm not questioning your integrity, sir, I'm truly not. I just think that needs to be supervised by a more neutral person who can decipher and absolutely address all of the mistakes.
Anyone else like to speak at this time? Thank you, everyone, for being out tonight. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Pete, appreciate that. City Attorney, Mr. Brackens.
All right, the other item I have to report, at our last meeting, by consensus, I was directed to engage in a discussion with the city manager about a path forward following the June 10th workshop and other matters. I want to start my report by saying Ms. Porter made herself available to me on Saturday morning following that meeting, and we spoke for about an hour and a half. She made herself available to me the next working day at about 8 a.m. and several days after that at 8 a.m. These are difficult conversations to have, especially when you work with somebody closely. I just want to share with you that at all times, she was professional, open, and honest. And to be clear, I think everyone knows this, Ms. Porter would like to stay in the position. But she was open to discussing other options and open to discussing a multitude of things. And I just want to say I appreciate her candor and the time she spent with me. There are essentially 5 options that you have. Some of them speak for themselves, but the first, of course, is you can choose to do nothing. And what does that mean? Well, if you do nothing, under her contract, you have to give her 30 days notice before you would terminate her without cause. That would always be open to you. The second, you would discuss some benchmarks at the June 10th meeting. You could, if it was your choice, you could amend her contract to include those benchmarks. That's not, practically speaking, since you can take the action under the first option anytime you want, so long as you provide her notice. Amending her contract to whether or not she satisfies or doesn't satisfy those benchmarks probably doesn't do you a whole lot of good, but it is an option. It's something you can do. The other option, of course, is what's under her contract. You can publicly notify her if you intend to terminate her. If you do that, it's an office under Florida law. She's entitled to due process and notice, and you have to give her 30 days notice, and she has an opportunity to be heard, and there'll be a public hearing. The next is a separation agreement, and it is an agreement where the parties have a meeting of the minds. It's governed by Florida law. Florida law sets strict limits. There's no such thing as a golden parachute under Florida law. It happened for a long time in Florida and no more. And her contract also mirrors the requirements of Florida law. So if it was in the interest of both parties to reach an agreement, to part ways in good company, that's an option for you. Another option is sort of a hybrid of this. Ms. Porter served for about 5.5 years as the finance officer for the city. Her training and experience is largely in the financial world. She's interested in pursuing, if it's your will, to have some structure in place where she's no longer the city manager, that she returns and has employment in the finance department. And that can take a multitude of forms. I do want to say that because there's a multitude of options you have there, or that she has to, it would have to be an agreement. That also, you have the finance officer. And I just wanted to report to you all after I spoke to Ms. Porter, and I kind of learned of this particular option. I reached out to Mr. Altman, wanted him to hear from me first, that there was the potential that Ms. Porter might return to the finance department, and the various ways in which that might work. So that is my report. But here's my request. I need, and she needs, we need direction from you all, individually and as a body, about how you would like me to proceed in my discussions with her. In any agreement, if you choose to go down that road, any form of agreement, she has the right to have that reviewed by the council of her choosing. It's at her own expense, but she has the right to have that reviewed, and she needs to have a meaningful opportunity to do that as well. So I just wanted to share that with you and ask for direction of which, if any of these options, you would like me and her to pursue further.
Thank you, Mr. Brackens. As I reviewed the 5 options that you presented to us, very interesting. I appreciate your work on this, and I appreciate the two of you working together, communicating together on this. I have had the pleasure of working with Ms. Porter, both as finance director and as the city manager, and our relationship has always been very cordial, and I've always had a good relationship with her, and I really feel like just having that willingness to have that good relationship helps a lot as well. And we may not always agree on things, but having the more moderating style that perhaps I have, it does help me, and I know that's not always the case with everyone. But having looked through the 5 options and the conversation that I had with Ms. Porter after these options were presented to us, I felt obligated to tell Ms. Porter that I was going to be in favor of option 4, and I've appreciated her time with us. I'm concerned that we have gotten to the point where we cannot continue with further distractions. We need to make some decisions. We need to move ahead. And I've appreciated so much my association with her, but I feel like this is even the best interest for her, so that she can find some peace in her life, which she's not finding at this time. And we had a very good conversation about that. It was a very difficult conversation. Especially for me, I shouldn't say especially for me, especially for Mrs. Porter, but it was a difficult conversation for me as well. But I really felt like we've gotten to this point where we have to go ahead and make some decisions. And of the 5 options that are being presented, I want her to be able to have the opportunity to go along with this. I think this would be better for her as well in terms of a more peaceful settlement, more peaceful severance as well. At this time, if any of the other commissioners would like to speak, this would be your time to do so.
I would like to go ahead and say that I think that do feel like option number 4 is also the best option for the city, in the way ahead. I feel like it's time for us to 100% move in a different direction, at this point. I wish that, maybe prior to this, option 5 had come up, but it only came after this situation. We're in the situation that we're in, and I just think it's just a little bit too late to recover from that. So I am also in favor in engaging in option number 4.
Anyway.
Commissioner Shine.
Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking over the last couple of weeks, and I can tell you, I just want to go on the record. I've been around City Hall. I know you all get tired of hearing this because I was 19 years old. I've worked with 6 different city managers over the years. And I've known Ms. Porter for 10 years. And she's always been a consummate professional. We may not always agree. We've had tough conversations, but not once has she been disrespectful, out of line, or disagreeable. She's always taken the notion of what we wanted to go a certain direction. She would go the direction. She's been very good at leading this commission forward. And I will say one thing, there's been some comments made in the public over the last weeks. She has always been a strong advocate for employees every year, doing pay studies, making sure they have additional holidays. She's worked hard and long, and she's done a great job. And I think the culture of City Hall, we want to blame everything on Ms. Porter, but there have been some of us who have been sitting on this commission for 30 years that have allowed a culture to be set in City Hall without saying anything. Now they have something to say. I've worked in City Hall for nearly 27 years, and there was a culture that I didn't enjoy. I think we all have an obligation to do and what's best for the city. Our city clerk, our finance director, employees, everybody to set the tone, to be team players. That hasn't happened from time to time. I've witnessed it myself. I think that right now, we don't have a public works director, we don't have a utility director, we don't have a community development director, we don't have an HR director. And we're gonna cut the head of the city off and moving forward. The timing sucks. We have over $34 million of projects on the books. We are at a point with Morningside Drive, which is a $15 million project that we have been working on for years. She has delivered. In City Hall, as you all, let me tell you all, I've seen you before, but we have a limited staff, about 5 top staff to work throughout the city as far as the regiment, paperwork, and all that. 2, and I can tell you, from sitting behind the scenes and being an employee myself, you're wearing many different hats. Being a city manager is tough. It's not an easy job. It's very tough. And I challenge any of these commissioners that want to give her papers walking down the road to sit in that seat and do that job, because I can tell you it is not easy. You know, I believe we have a great opportunity tonight before us and moving the city forward as some have desired, while taking the city to the next level in leadership. We can all agree as a city that we're at a crossroads in dealing with unprecedented growth, a multitude of complex issues, and substantial projects. Morningside, construction of the new wastewater treatment plant, and the project list goes on and on. I'm in favor of option number 5. That's moving Ms. Porter back to finance, where her skill set and expertise and qualifications are needed and better suited. She was a great finance director for 5 years. Our auditors have told us over the past few audit cycles, we need additional expertise and additional employees within finance. Mr. Altman has expressed to me that there's a need for expertise, certifications in finance. Finance is the backbone of the city. You better have your finances right or you're not going anywhere. Ms. Porter is highly qualified and competent with many certifications. She's a certified public accountant. She's a CGFO, which is a certified government finance officer. She has over 20 years of experience in local government, 15 years as a finance or equivalent. We can all agree that Ms. Porter has vast institutional knowledge of the city operations, budget process, critical insight to ongoing projects. She would be an asset to the new city manager coming forward. Right now, we're going to clean the slate. No one's going to be at the top. And I can tell you, I've been through the interview process and trying to hire a new city manager. It's not easy. We interviewed 8 to 10 applicants the last time. Nobody fit the bill. We, as a commission, put Ms. Porter in that position knowing she didn't have all the experience that she needed, but she was willing to learn. She gave it her best. She has worked hard on behalf of the city. If there's someone else up here to take cheap shots, I find it egregious, let me tell you. We can all agree that it would be detrimental to the city, given the critical juncture of where we are in the city today, and losing that valuable experience and knowledge moving forward. So I am in favor of option number 5, giving us an opportunity to retain that valuable knowledge and expertise while meeting the increasing demands of the finance department, preserving valuable institutional knowledge and moving forward. While we can all agree Ms. Porter is a valuable asset from a financial perspective, she also will be a valuable asset to the city manager. So I'd like to give the city attorney some direction with city manager and Mr. Altman to go back and have discussions, see how we can make that happen. We're in the process, we have a little budget. We're getting ready to start a budget, and we're gonna cut the head of the city off at this point in time. I can tell you, it is not easy. I would encourage all of us to sit in that seat and do the job. Has there been mistakes? Has there been some hiccups? Yes, but she's not totally responsible. We as a city commission, 3 of the commissioners Commissioner Costantino gave a 3.94 evaluation, 2024, an amazing evaluation which says that you're excellent. Scott Black gave a 3.45. I gave a 4.2 based on some things that she had done because she's a little retarded. Ms. Woodard, you've stuck to your guns. You've been very dissatisfied. I give you credit for that. But I think that we have to act in a cautionary manner because we are putting the city at risk. Losing Ms. Porter this time is going to cost us money. We got payouts, and we're going to lose the institutional knowledge that we have moving forward. So I say, I'm really, I tell you, been very frustrated because some of us want to, but I would say to every one of you, sit in the seat, do the job. And I can tell you, that is a tough job. I've worked in every department here as a city with the 46 years that I've been around the city, in every department. It's tough. So I think that we need to be a little more cautious moving forward. I would rather see Ms. Porter go to the finance. I know that there's been some talk. So my direction would be to have the city attorney talk to Mr. Altman and Ms. Porter, how we can move to resolution. There's a need for additional expertise in finance. She has never been dishonest, and she's always done, as far as I'm concerned, what's right and working on behalf of the city. Never in 10 years have I gotten any flack from this lady. She's coming here, she's coming here, she's done a great job. There were some terminations. Hey, nobody who's in this audience tonight, none of you all have come and talked to Ms. Porter individually. Nobody's come in this office and said, hey, what's the problem? Nobody's reviewed personnel files. Nobody's done that. So before the benefit of doubt, my position is that we need to not put the city in a bad position this time moving forward. My recommendation is to see if we can go back, have discussions, bring her back in. That gives us everybody what they want. We can look for a new city manager. Ms. Porter could be a great asset to the city manager moving forward. That Morningside Drive alone is a complicated project, So I think that we need to be careful because we are acting irresponsibly now.
Any other commissioners like to speak at this time?
I'd like to speak.
Commissioner Cosentino.
First I'd like to say, Mr. Perkins, thank you so much. And Ms. Porter, thank you so much for going forward in these conversations that were extremely difficult. We tasked you with something that was challenging and you came back with a good amount of options, and I appreciate the hard work. I would like to address some statements. There is no good time to do this. There is never a good time to do this. There won't be ever a time in our commission that it's appropriate to take action like this. This is difficult for all of us. I know that the city manager's position is extremely difficult. I understand the demands that are in that position. And I also understand the demands that are in my seat, in my position, and this is very difficult. This is not enjoyable. I don't enjoy this. I have had a good working relationship with Ms. Porter since the time I've come on the commission. I've appreciated our open conversation, our open dialogue, her hard work, and her task orientation to get the things done that we have. As I stated, this has more to do with the leadership qualities than the task management. I did give her a 3.94, but I completed that earlier on in the year. There was some confusion of when it was supposed to be done. I did not amend it based on what I had seen with all of the terminations and things that had taken place. That really, the concerns that I had continued to grow. I did not amend what I had put in the public record after talking to staff, but I did at that workshop address that as well and talk about my concerns. I think that in conversation with Ms. Porter, I knew that tax law and finance is something that brings her great satisfaction. And I do think that it would be a good move for our city to have that expertise in our finance department. I am for number 5, but if the board does not agree with number 5, then I agree that number 4 is the right move.
Thank you, Commissioner Presentino. Commissioner Church, would you like to make any comments?
For clarification here, some good points have been raised about the importance of institutional knowledge, and especially with all of the vacancies in the city, that is weighing on me. My question would be, if we go with number 4, what would a plan for continuity be? If we go with number 5, what would that even look like? Are we talking about shuffling 2 people around? What, like specifically, what are we talking about here? I'm wary to vote for number 4 without knowing who is gonna step up, what our plan for filling that gap is. That's information that I would want to know. So for other people in support of number 4, what is the plan for filling that gap?
Mr. Church, I can add from my experience in the past, that we have, in the past, the finance director has been the acting city manager in the absence of the city manager. So I think that Ms. Porter would be a great asset in helping to facilitate or helping to inform, give knowledge, ascertain the new city manager, get somebody on board. It may take a month or 2, it could take 6 months. You know, we have critical deadlines when it comes to Morningside Drive. I think to do anything else would be totally reckless. There's an avenue. We can have Ms. Porter go to the finance. She can, I talked to her today, she said she would be willing to assist with the knowledge, the expertise, and the projects, you know, helping whatever she could do to help a new city manager come in. Number 5 is an option to move forward with new leadership. That's what I hear. The majority of the complaint here is new leadership. We have been told by the past auditors that we need to increase finance capabilities within the finance. So I think there's an avenue. My position is, have Mr. Brackens go back, talk to Ms. Porter, and Mr. Altman, and staff to see what scenario could come up and how we can best move forward. I don't think we need to jump the gun. This doesn't need to be something we need to rush into. We really need to think this out. But option number 5, if everybody wants to do leadership and they want to ascertain and keep the institutional knowledge, option 5 is the best option for the city, given the current predicament we're in right now and moving forward. I can tell you, in a lot of years, that it's not easy trying to find a good city manager and find one that we all agree on. So this gives us an avenue to put her over in finance. She can help facilitate things till we can get somebody hired, get them interviewed, get them in here, and get them on board. That's a smart solution.
I'm concerned about option 5. I did meet with Ms. Porter as well. And in discussing this with her, one of her concerns was it wouldn't be fair to her if we were to move her into another position and still ask her to do the work of city manager.
I agree.
Which is essentially what it sounds like this is headed towards. You know, we're talking about an indefinite period of time.
Now I'm balancing that against, you know, against all of these other things, but that was a concern that she herself raised to me, that she did not want to be in that
Well,
particular.
let me tell you what we've done in the past. In the past, when Jim Class was our finance director, and we were looking for a city manager, we gave him a slight increase to help find a city manager, getting somebody on board. So there was a slight increase. So that would all be in negotiations with moving forward with the number five, option number 5. That would be something that we could give the city attorney direction, go back, have those discussions, bring it back. If we don't agree to the terms of number 5, then we can say no. But I think we don't need to shut that option out. We need to look at it. And this is not something we gotta do this moment. I mean, I would have, my wish is to give the city attorney direction to go start having discussions with staff. Not only are we affecting the finance, the city manager office, we're affecting the staff. And I can tell you, there are a lot of employees in City Hall that enjoy Mrs. Porter, that really have told me, hey, why aren't the commissioners talking to us? Why aren't they talking to us? They're talking to everybody else on the outside, but they're not talking to us. So I would like to see a motion made that we go, and we're not solidifying this, but have the city attorney go back, have those discussions to see what the option would be. If we're not happy with it, then we can cut it off once it comes back.
I also had some conversations with the manager in terms of not making, I'm not in favor of making this an immediate severance, that she could have some time to transition out, and that would also work to our benefit in terms of a transition period. I also know too, in the past, we have had to go through this before. I've been a commissioner at the time, even a mayor at the time when we had to transition. I will say this, that there's never a perfect time. That was touched on by Commissioner Cosentino. And it is always with a great deal of regret, and that we have to feel obligated to make decisions when we feel like it's in the best interest of the city to move forward. But there was always a way to do it, and we've always done it before. And I have no doubt that the city of Dade City, the resilient nature that it has, that we can pull through this. There's never going to be a perfect time, but there are times that you do have to make unfortunate decisions, make these calls. Now, I will say this too, that there are organizations that can help us. I know that there is the Range Rider program with the City Manager Association. They perform an invaluable service for many cities that are going through transition. Mr. Brackens works with a number of cities. He may even have some thoughts on this as well. There are people that we can call on, within the city. There are people even in the greater Pasco County area that held city management positions or county management positions in the past that may even be willing to come in and help us should Ms. Porter not remain with us during that transition period. So there are ways to do this, and we can make it as difficult as we want to. We can find solutions, and I think there are solutions out there. I've invited any comment. Mr. Brackens, have you had any experience?
It sounds like we are all in agreement that the city needs to take a new direction with our city manager. So everyone is looking at options 4 or 5. Is that the bottom line?
I believe that is correct.
However, one of and this is where we don't need to start the flip-flop. At some point, the elephant in the room was gonna have to be addressed. And it's been pushed off. We asked Mr. Brackens to come back and give us some solutions. And he needs an answer to those solutions. So it is time today for you to say your conviction. If it's 4, you say 4. If it's 5, you say 5. But nobody said after you say 4 or 5 that it happens tomorrow. Because again, we still have to do what's in the best interest of the city. But taking someone from a position, putting them in another position, and then saying that you want them to assist with helping us get a city manager, which is the job that they're being relinquished of,
Makes no sense.
I don't want input from that.
Well, I think we're misrepresenting the facts here.
And to also say that we're here taking cheap shots is not why we're here. I have been upfront And I have documented performance from year one. I have done what I was asked to do. And at the end of the day, everybody has to vote their own conviction. That's not a cheap shot. That is what I was elected to do. And we don't have to agree on anybody's vote, but it should be respected.
Mr. Brackens, I think what I said has been misrepresented. I didn't say that Ms. Porter would be helping us find a city manager. If she was needed, we got a city manager. You said you have somebody that can fill it in the interim, correct? You have somebody that you can think of?
Yeah.
So that should not be too hard getting on board quickly. So my position was that she has all the institutional knowledge that she can share, if the city manager wants to share. Not once did I say she's gonna help find a city manager. That's misconstrued. So at this time, can I entertain a motion?
No.
No? I guess we can't.
No, and that's one of the things I wanted to jump in on. So this is my report and my ask for direction from you all, but you can't make motions.
That's right. So it's waiting on the agenda.
Right, you have to put it on the agenda. So I've heard a lot. One of the things that I think it's fair, because I have had individual discussions with you all about this, but one of the questions from Ms. Church was continuity of government in the interim, whichever option we choose. So you have several options. At the end of the day, what you choose to do is up to you. There are no special rules when it comes to who you put in a position. If you hire somebody to be permanent right away, you can do that. It is led and guided by you. But I've also sat in these meetings and heard this discussion for many months now. And so I knew if it ever came to the point where you decided you need to go in a different direction, the first thing you do is you look at me and say, okay, what do we do? So I've given it some thought. So there are organizations you can go to that the mayor mentioned. My thought would be, my recommendation would be, you look to have someone serve, bring somebody in as an interim city manager for a short period of time, 3 to 6 months, that allows you to do a fulsome search for the right candidate to serve in that position for long term. I've mentioned the name to you all, that it's not somebody who's currently at the city, it's not somebody who currently lives here, but it's somebody who has a long time experience as city manager, has worked for the ICMA, where he has been dropped into places that are in crisis all around the country. That is by no means something you have to consider. It's just something, if you look to me and say, what do we do? That would be my recommendation for you to consider. You know, the interview process be up to you. If you wanted to open it up, you can, but my recommendation would, you would bring somebody in whenever, if you decide ultimately to move on, whenever Ms. Porter's term is up, you have somebody ready to go in a very narrow window of time. They can serve for a short period of time, 3 to 6 months, while you do a wide-ranging search. That can include a search firm. Search firms have historically very mixed reviews about what you get from a search firm. Some of you know that much better than I do, but you can still go to your sister communities and the county and other places and look for the right candidates. So that's simply my recommendation, but ultimately what you decide to do at the end of the day is up to you.
I think what I would like to see happen, is I think we need somebody who can conduct some kind of, audit. I don't know if audit is the right word, but look at all of the city processes. And budget season is actually a good time to do this, as we're looking at, the structure and the openings that we have. It's a good time for somebody to objectively look at all of this and make recommendations for us about how the city should be structured and how it can function more effectively. So if those are services that this person can provide, or these groups can provide, I think that's something the city desperately needs at this point, is somebody from the outside, a third party, to come in here and look at what we've got going on. My concerns about number 5, like I said, were Mrs. Porter's comments about not wanting to have that on her shoulders. And I had talked to her too about, we have so many vacancies. I'm having a hard time creating a brand new position that's going to take extra money out of the budget when we have so many vacancies. I don't know how we justify that, and how much are we talking about here? So I'm having a hard time voting. I feel like number 5 is fair, but I'm having a hard time voting for it because I don't know what that looks like.
And none of you are voting for anything.
Right.
I won't let you.
Right.
We're giving you a consensus.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time giving a consensus when I don't know what that means.
So, I am looking, Ms. Porter's looking for direction to narrow the scope of what you're looking for. We can come back to you with, I could work with her, if we're able to reach an agreement on proposed terms, and I have no idea if we will. So you tell me option 5 and specifically how you want it to look, and we may have no deal, because you're not gonna have a deal unless you have an agreement from her, and how that looks, or if you have an agreement for how it would work in practice and finance office. So even if you tell me, if you were all unanimous that you wanted me to pursue option 5, we may not get there. Same way for option 4. There's no guarantee that at the end of the day, there's going to be an agreement between the parties on what option 4 looks like. That's why none of you are voting on anything. It's give me direction of which one to pursue. We'll see if we can get there. And at the end of the day, if we come to you with a proposal and an agreement that is satisfactory to Ms. Porter and her independent personal legal counsel, and it's good with me, each of you have the right to say this is horrible, I don't want to do it, and I change my mind. So you're not bound by any of it. But I do need direction.
That's why it wouldn't hurt to have that discussion with option 5. Come back, we don't like it, it's not gonna work, it's not feasible as far as the budget. Mrs. Porter, if you'd like to, I know that we have a couple of good candidates for the HR director, the utility director. I think, how close are we to hiring those individuals here?
I'm in reference checks now.
Checking references, so there have been some good candidates for certain things. So my suggestion would be is to go back, have that discussion, come back. If it's not gonna work, we need to have that discussion.
In reference to that, the how is it worded in here? Co-finance officers worries me. Having 2 people at the head of that department reporting to us about the same things, how that chain of command works. I think it's important for there to be one point person.
Also, where are we getting an entire additional salary at that
Right.
level? That's not in our budget. For me, that's not an option moving forward. We're not creating a new position. We have 4 charter officers. That is it. We do not need to complicate that. We do not need to make this situation more complicated for us. We need to find the path that works best for the city of Dade City. And I know Mayor Pro Tem, I maybe seemed like I was wayward. Option 5 is where I'd like to go. If that's where my conviction is option 5, that we have discussion. I agree that I do not want Ms. Porter being put in the finance officer position, and then she has this responsibility to help the city manager, the new city manager would come into their place. That's not fair to her, and I'm not looking for that at all.
I don't think any of us know what's gonna look. I think it's good to have the discussion, then come back. I don't think there's any urgency. Right now, we've got to keep the city moving, keep it rolling, keep the projects going. At least have the discussion and then come back. If we don't like how it plays out, and we've been told, Mr. Alman, if you can, you've told me on many occasions that you need more expertise in that you want to hire somebody more. that there's a need. We've been told by the auditors that we need to beef up the finance over the last 3 or 4 audit periods, so there's a need. So, option 5 gives us the opportunity to move forward, get a new leader for the city, and beef up the finance department. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it doesn't hurt to have the discussion.
Some comments, about option 5 that will probably muddle all the waters. And, any conversation like that would have to come with a probationary period,
It could.
in the new position, some period of time. And, like I said, I am not in favor of co-finance officers. That muddies the waters. And, it would probably be a lower level position, if there's a need in the finance department. But even something else in the city with all of these vacancies, I just don't see creating another position.
We find ourselves in a situation that's most unenviable. There's just no clear way out, and there's no good way out. And I wish that there were other options that we could consider, but my conversation and my conviction is that we are going to have to find a way out, and that the cleanest way out is to go with option 4. Going to option 5 has so many problems that are with that we would have to work out. So many things going from the number 1 position to an independent other position within the city. There are just certain things that are not going to go away that sadly are not going to go away that we wish could. But we find ourselves, as I said, in an unenviable position, and there's no other way out that I see. And I think we do have to choose the cleanest way out. And I think that hopefully we can all work together and I know we can. There are solutions. This is not a dead end, what we're talking about tonight. This will all work out. The sun will still come up tomorrow, but we're going to have to take action. We have to move ahead. The city cannot afford to continue on in this position. At some point, we have to make the leadership position that we have to take action, and that's where we are tonight. And that's where I stand at this time, is with option 4. Now let's give Mr. Brackens the direction he needs. What's the consensus of the group? Now I realize we can't take a vote, but I guess somehow we have to come up with our consensus, Mr. Brackens.
Well, I've heard a consensus for option 4 or option 5, and option 5 can take a lot of different terms and a lot of different sub-options. How about this? Option 4 is fairly straightforward. Even though it does need to be agreed upon, she needs a meaningful opportunity to have it reviewed by her counsel. It's something that can be done at the same time. And it may come to be that as we're working on with Mr. Altman and Ms. Porter on option 5, that we reach an impasse and option 5 is no longer an option whether you all want it or not. And so then I can come back to you with option 4. But if the consensus is that I see if there's an opportunity for, based on what I've heard in my conversations with Ms. Porter and Mr. Altman, if there's a path forward, I can bring that back to you. If there's no path forward, we'll see where we are. But option 4 is not heavy lifting. So it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, and I don't want you to get in a situation where you all are actually voting without voting.
I would love to have option 5, but I just do not feel like that's going to be a workable situation. I think we've got to move ahead, and that's where we have to make the tough call. And,
That's my sentiment exactly. I would love for option 5 to work. But we're all in agreement that in either direction, it's time to head in a different direction for city manager.
Okay. I think I have what I need. The next question is the tricky one. I'm happy to come back and make a report at the next meeting. You could also, if you wanna put an item on the agenda, so that you can make a motion and make a vote one way or the other, you can do that now. You could also, you know, if it would be, if we had an agreement in place that she was acceptable to, or Mr. Alderman was acceptable, whatever the case may be, wherever we find ourselves. I don't know that we'll have that by next Tuesday when the agenda's published. I really don't. So it might be something that's added on to the agenda after Tuesday. I know that is a big no-no. But if we get there and there's something for you all to vote on, you can put it on, we can add it to the agenda. Or you can make an action item on the agenda, just city manager. And if we have, you know, if there's something you wanna vote on, then you can. I would just remind you that if you win, I think it's option 3, the vote would be to place her on notice. Not vote to remove her, but place her on notice that you would consider removing her. That's the only other thing I wanted to add, but as things stand right now, next time I would come back to you and I would simply make another report.
I think it's important that we put it on the agenda at this point, otherwise we'll never rip the Band-Aid off in one direction or another. It's just gonna continue festering.
Here's the thing, that's fine, but I would ask you to just put it on there as a blank item, city manager. And here's why. We can, let's say we craft an agreement that is acceptable and gladly accepted by everyone involved, and we think you all will approve it. Well, here's the thing, that's gonna take some time, and that meaningful time for her to have her attorney review is not a joke. You gotta give it to her. And then there's some legal considerations there too. So it may be that even though it's on the agenda, I come back to you and say, we've made terrific progress, but you're not gonna have the agreement on your agenda because it's still gotta be approved by our council. So it may simply be coming to you, I tell you where we are, and ask you to continue to the next meeting. And I would tell you, even if we had an agreement, that's probably more likely than not. If you want the technical legal reason for that, one of the things I've shared with you and I've shared with Mr. Porter is in any type of separation agreement, even if it's completely amicable, I would always insist upon a release on behalf of my client and the elected officials and the city itself. That is something that she, one, has to approve and understand and have it reviewed by our council. The federal law, if you're going to release any federal claims, she gets 7 days to revoke under federal law after she signs. So we got to comply with those deadlines too. So I have no issue with you putting it on the agenda, but just realize it may be okay. Here's where we're at, but we're going to need to continue to the next meeting.
Is everyone concurring with that from the city attorney?
Yes, Mayor.
Am I hearing from everyone? Yes?
I am in concurrence with, what you're saying. However, I'm not sure if this option number 5, that, I don't know what we're saying about Mr. Altman.
It was
That's also a problem for me.
It was my understanding.
You have a person that is doing the finance officer job and who is working to get us out of situations that still happened up under the current leadership. And now we're saying, oh, you know what, maybe you can have an assistant to help you. But we don't know what the pay is gonna look like. We don't have money to pay the people that we currently have. But we're gonna create a position for a person that has failed to do their job. I just wanna make sure we're saying it out loud, cause for some reason, it just seems like we're afraid to say it out loud.
I am not in favor of creating a new position, but I do think that we have so many vacancies.
And that's why we have the opportunity to once again give Mr. Patrick directions. And then from there, again, nobody is saying chop the head off today. But come to some type of agreement that gives us a time frame to find or put in place an interim director. But the bottom line is, he needs direction to say which way are we going to go.
Let me ask this, we got.
And it has not been said.
Let's
It's been
bring-
asked.
I thought Mr. Bracken said he was going forward on number 4.
No, he didn't.
Drafting that paperwork.
And I drafted that paperwork, or a draft of it, immediately after our last meeting. Shared it with Ms. Porter, and we've been working on it. The idea of option 5 came up later, and it was my duty to report it to you and to see, if that was something you were interested in. Also to see if you were interested in the other options. So,
Let me just,
Let's do this. We've had some conversations. We do need to bring this to.
no, I'm gonna respond.
Well,
That's fine.
I've allowed you to respond.
No, I'm gonna respond.
What we're gonna do is, we're gonna give the city attorney the direction he's looking for. The direction it sounded like he was thinking, or that he was wanting to take is come back with looking at both 4 and 5. It sounds like I'm hearing that, from the most of us, maybe that's not what we want. Is that what we want? Do we want to come back hearing from both options 4 and 5, or do we want to say only one?
That's the question.
That is the question, and that's where we need to give him some direction right now.
I wanna hear from both.
Options 4 and 5.
I am for option 4.
I am for option 4.
If you're gonna come back and report to us anyhow, I would want to hear both. Not committing,
Right.
no, and then, when they say they're interested in option 4 or only option 5, they're not committing to voting for it. It'd be like voting for a contract that you don't have in your packet and haven't seen before and don't know how much you're paying for.
right. I will say with option 5, though, I am not in favor of creating a new position when we have so many vacancies.
I would like to look at 4 and 5.
Okay.
4 and 5.
Sounds like we have some
Consensus.
direction. Okay, thank you, everyone. Under the, interim, or excuse me, Mr. Bracken, do you have any further?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Police chief,
Lots of votes.
like yours.
Lots.
Okay, thank you. Interim community and economic development director. Okay, thank you. Public works director and interim utilities director.
No, sir.
Okay, Troy, thank you for stepping in.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Anything else for the good of the order before we open this to the public? Okay, we are gonna open the meeting to the public at this time. We do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. One thing I want to say before we do this, though, I'll tell a little story. And several years ago, we had a city attorney who wasn't always, he's not going to go down in history as being the one that's always quoted. But we had a situation come up, and the commissioner really had some passionate views about something, and she was stating those, and it was very evident that the commissioner had the support of all 5 of the commissioners. I think it's fair to say majority, if not all 5 of the commissioners, but continued to make the same argument over and over again. And the attorney spoke up and said, I think you're about to hit this one out of the ballpark. If you keep talking about it, they may reconsider. So as I open this to the public, I just want to say this. We're always glad to hear from the public, but some of the things that we have been hearing from the public on the topic of the city manager, we've heard 3-4 times the same thing. So I would like to encourage each one of you, if you have some comments to make tonight about the city manager, let's keep this unique. Let's let this be a unique comment, because again, if you feel like you're getting what you're looking for and you're wanting to continue on, you may find out that this may not be the way you wanted to hit it out of the ballpark, but you may be getting the results that you wanted. So if there's no need to continue to repeat the same things over and over again. And then again, I want to encourage each one of us in this conversation. We as commissioners, for the most part, have had a very good relationship with our city manager. We want to keep it that way. And I think it's to the benefit of the city. It's to the benefit of our employees that our morale be as good as possible. So we need a time to heal. And so I do want to emphasize that, because some of our comments have been very harsh. Some of these have not been the most noble of things, the way we could have done this better. And so I do want to encourage it and I realize some people may resent this request, but I hope it's coming from a position of wisdom. And I would encourage you all to look at it that way too, or strive to do that. And so at this time, we will open it to the public, but I would like to ask us all to kind of come together. It's time for us to get together. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Thank you very much, everyone. Everyone have a good evening. Meeting adjourned.